Hey, one more World Entertainment, and Deadpool and Wolverine, of course, was filled to the brim with cameos. Cameos here and cameos there, and a lot of them weren't even the original actors portraying the characters. However, we did do a video a while ago about art, basically, that showed other cameos that were meant to be in there, such as a T-Rex, and of course, Ghost Rider. Well, they've basically now fully confirmed that they did in fact try to get Nick Cage to come back. And not in the case of they wanted the idea of, hey, do you think we should maybe include Ghost Rider? No, apparently they actually reached out to Nick Cage about coming in and playing Ghost Rider in the movie. But let's have a look at this article that talks about this. So it says, before cameras even started rolling on Deadpool and Wolverine, there were rumours that Nicolas Cage was set to reprise his role as Johnny Blaze / Ghost Rider, and we'd later learn that there were indeed early plans to include a version of the character via some officially released concept art. I never heard the rumour of him coming back as Ghost Rider. I heard us all saying it'd be cool if he showed up, but I never heard that he was going to reprise the role. It continues anyway, saying stars Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman joined director Shawn Levy on Entertainment Weekly's Awardist podcast, and Reynolds confirmed that they did reach out to Cage about potentially suiting up as the Spirit of Vengeance again. And here's what he said about this. They were in early drafts. We had versions of that sequence, but then as it shook out, you're sort of looking. We're trying to make the movie responsibly as well. It's a big budget. It's the biggest budget of any of the Deadpool movies, but you want to give yourself as much constraint, which really, I think, facilitates asymmetrical thinking and creativity. If you have too much time or too much money, it usually murders that kind of creativity. So yeah, you're shrinking things. But we did talk to Nick Cage. We tried to get him, but he was a no-go. I would have loved him. Now, it's interesting the way Reynolds speaks about that he says they were in early drafts. Does he mean just... Or maybe he's referring to the idea of Johnny Blaze and Ghost Rider, or he's potentially talking about that concept art, because he says that sequence shrunk, which obviously meant this was probably meant to be that big battle scene that of course was Deadpool, Wolverine, Elektra, Blade and so on. And obviously the idea was to have Daredevil in there, Deadpool, T-Rex and Ghost Rider. And Shawn Levy then chimed in with this as well, saying luckily we got a lot of yeses, mostly because Ryan just called them directly. He'd often do an ambush FaceTime and put them on the spot. So he was basically just phoning people going, want to be in it? They were like, okay. So it's interesting as well. He's like, we got a lot of yeses. The question is, from who? Because again, a lot of the cameos that did show up in there weren't played by the original actors. So I'm curious as what those yeses were. It's interesting that Nick Cage said no, but that may very well have come down to the fact of what happened with The Flash, where he was just thinking, no, I'm not doing this again, where I could go in, they want me to do one thing, and all of a sudden there's some horrible CGI version of me on the screen doing everything I didn't do. Because we know that's what happened with The Flash when he went in to be Superman for that brief cameo, and then he saw the movie and came out and said, yeah, I didn't do any of that. That's nothing I did. I didn't fight a big spider when I was there. I stood there and stared. That's what he said. So it's very possible that when they said, hey, do you want to come for a cameo in this? He was very like, no, I'm not doing that again. So they are, of course, wondering, will we ever see Nick Cage return as Ghost Rider? I'm going to say no. He has seemingly called out Disney regarding the National Treasure movies. If you remember that, he said, if you want your dreams to come true, don't bring them to Disney. So that's in reference to getting movies made and stuff, because obviously he wanted to do that third National Treasure movie and never came to function. So he's possibly as well not willing to work with them. Maybe that was another factor. Don't know. But it is interesting to find out that not just did they have the idea and the concept art of having Ghost Rider in there, but they actually did reach out to Nick Cage himself and say, hey, Nick, how do you feel about suiting back up as Johnny Blaze and jumping into Deadpool and Wolverine? It's also interesting actually there as well that Ryan Reynolds hints at the budget. We still don't actually know what the full budget was of this movie. And you hear him there saying it's a big budget. It's the biggest budget of any of the Deadpool movies. Well, that would be easy because the first two Deadpool movies cost 75 million to make. We know this is well over 150. We don't know what the full number is. There's reports of it being 120. It is in its whole only 120 million. This thing is probably well over 200 million, especially given the fact that they had to stop filming because of the strikes. So we don't know what the number was, but you know, let's face fact, it did make money, you know. So whether it was 200, whether it was 300, it covered its costs. But it would have been cool to see Nick Cage in there. Obviously the biggest pop in the movie, at least in my screen, was for Blade. I've heard a lot of other people say, yeah, when Blade walked out, their cinemas gave the biggest pop. Could you imagine the pop Nick Cage would have gotten as well? People would have just been like, oh shit, yeah man, Nick Cage, Johnny Blaze. Unfortunately, we didn't get it, but it makes sense that we didn't. You know, again, with what happened with him in The Flash and probably not wanting to work with Disney again. Yeah, we lost out, but at least we got Blade in it. So, with that, I'll leave it there for this one. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Cheers, and I'll catch you in the next one.